You're watching an amazing podcast from an amazing podcast company.
What's up, Mob Associates? Johnny Chechitelli here, Jimmy Naples. We're coming to you with another edition of Youngstown Mob Talk with Cigars. Thanks to Cut and Toast.
And thank you to Sunrise Inn. Without our sponsors, we couldn't continue to keep bringing you this great content. So we definitely want to send a shout out to the Sunrise Inn and Ken Hadaris, and of course, the guys here at Cut and Toast. We got to thank you guys for having us. We love being here. Johnny, what you smoking on today?
Oh, this is called a Fat Bottom Betty. I asked for something with a little flavor today. Okay. This is very flavorful, very flavorful.
Earlier I was smoking this here, which is a Tatiana cherry flavor. Okay. And of course you see I finished that. So then I went on to this Espinosa cigar called Comfortably Numb.
Comfortably Numb,
yeah,
okay.
It's one of my favorite Pink Floyd tracks.
Yeah,
I had to kind of take a shot at that. And it's good cigar,
Cherry and Comfortably Numb. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
So we're coming to you with another Mob Talk with Cigars. We do this from Cut and Toast every now and then, once a month. It's 160 Lowellville Road here in Struthers, Ohio. Of course, we got a big Mob Talk show coming up.
Huge.
Live show. You don't want to miss it. It's February 9th at the Robbins Theater in Warren, Ohio. There's still some tickets left, so get your tickets now.
There ain't many, though. There ain't many.
We're going to be talking, we got some guests. We got some, I don't want to ruin it, we got some other stuff coming. We also got a surprise guest.
I'm going to tell you what, Johnny. If these people don't show up for this show, they are going to be kicking themselves in the ass for not coming to the show.
Yeah, exactly. You should be kicking yourself in the ass for not coming to this show.
Exactly.
We just gave away, right when we started here, we just gave away some authentic Jim Trafficant paintings. The stuff that he painted when he went away. He had two favorite kind of things to paint. There was horses and beautiful women, and we just gave away a bunch of these to the guys in attendance here at Cut and Toast. So we gave away $5 chips for cigars. If you guys ever see that we're holding an event, come out. We do all kinds of great stuff. Usually you walk away with something very cool. At our live show coming up on February 9th, we're going to be raffling off some Jim Trafficant paintings. So if you want to go home with one, get a bunch of raffle tickets there. We got merchandise, the Steel Valley Syndicate gear.
Yeah, we're gonna have the Steel Valley Syndicate flag T-shirt, black T-shirt with the Steel Valley Syndicate logo on it, and we're also gonna have the black flag Steel Valley Youngstown Mob Talk one, with the Youngstown Mob Talk logo with the gangster in the middle. So we're going to have both of those shirts will be available at the show. We're also going to have, Brandy's going to be there selling those and taking care of that. She's also going to have an iPad there with her in case you see something on the website that you want that we don't have there. She'll take your order right there day of the show. You get a 20% discount for placing an order at the show. And she'll be able to take credit cards and all that, so we'll be good to go.
That's coming up on February 9th at the Robbins Theater. You can get your tickets right now, robbinstheater.com. Get them before they're gone, guys. We hope to see you out there. It's just going to be a fun show. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got music. I don't want to ruin it, but it's going to be a very fun show, and hopefully the first of many. But it's also part of Mob Week coming up at the Robbins Theater the whole week, guys. Wednesday, the night before, they're playing Goodfellas. So you're going to want to get your tickets to that. We're doing some trivia. We'll come out for that night as well. We'll do all kinds of fun stuff. The night after us is Michael Jackson's Who's Bad. We've gone over the ties to the mob ties to Michael Jackson with Frank DeLeo. Exactly. And, Martin Scorsese directed that video. But there's that whole time. And then the night after that, it's the music of Frank Sinatra. So Mob Week at the Robbins Theater, February 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. Come out, guys, support us, you know.
So it's Youngstown's own version of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yeah, and if you haven't been to the Robins, by the way, beautiful theater, guys. They really renovated that theater. You know, it's like an old movie palace when you walk in there. It's beautiful. So if you haven't checked out the Robins Theater yet, what are you waiting for? Get your tickets.
Yeah, they're going to have a cash bar there, so, you know, there'll be drinks available and things like that. It's going to be a fun night, man.
Yeah, so, you know, let's talk a little bit about the mob here.
Okay.
Last week, we did a post about the KKK in Niles and how the Italian-American community and the Catholics in general,
Right.
you know, railed against the KKK, pushed them out of Niles when they were trying to do their rallies in the early 1920s. We got a lot of good feedback about that. People wanted to know more about that.
Absolutely.
So there's, you know, some great stuff. We're actually booking some more guests. You know, Sean Posey's going to come on. He's going to tell us a little bit about the Black Hand and
Yep.
stuff. Jimmy Barber wants to come on. We'll get him on.
Yep.
There's another guy from the Pittsburgh Mob group.
Yeah.
Just wrote a book. What's his book?
Paul Hodos, he wrote, you'll see it, it's in the Youngstown Mob group and in the Pittsburgh Mob group, so make sure you check that out.
Steel City Mafia, I
Steel
believe.
City Mafia,
It's a
yep.
book coming out. We can't wait to talk to you, Paul. We'll have you on the show as well.
Yeah, make sure you check it out. You know, it's Steel City Mafia, Blood, Betrayal, and Pittsburgh's Last Dawn. You can pre-order that now. It doesn't come out until April 17th, but you can go on Amazon and pre-order that. So make sure you check out Paul's book. It's going to be fantastic.
We really like to support, you know, all these guys out there that are the authors, that are historians like us. We're big fans of the history of this town and this region. You know, it's not that we try not to just glorify the violence and the culture, all that. It's history, guys. It's all stuff that happened, and in Youngstown especially had a long history of about 100 years of just being known as Crime Town, and, you know, way back when. There was even an old quote that I saw from the 1920s, was one of the local mayors said something about, you know, the area had a notorious reputation.
Exactly.
So it's been that way for 100 years. Youngstown, you know, say what you want about it, it's home for us.
Exactly.
This whole Mahoning Valley, wherever you're from in the Mahoning Valley, I don't care if you're from Warren, if you're from Columbiana County, you're all part of the Mahoning Valley, really.
Right.
And so, you know, embrace the history here, and, you know, how many other places, especially the size of the Mahoning Valley,
Right.
have this kind of rich history.
There's not too many, you know. And we always hear, you know, about New York and the Five Families and the Genovese and the Gambinos and all those, you know, all those great players of, you know, that left their mark in mob history. But, you know, they forget about places like Youngstown, places like Cleveland, places like Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, you're talking New York's millions of people.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you can hide in New York. You can't hide in Youngstown, you know? And so that's another thing that makes it so fascinating, because it's such a small community, right? Even back in the day when it was 150,000 people living in the city of Youngstown, right? And yeah, that may seem like a lot of people sitting here looking now when we got 50,000 people that live here, right? But you have to think of what was going on back then, right? We had all these bug houses that were all across the city, run by different factions. So you had guys from Cleveland down there that had spots. You had guys from Pittsburgh that had spots. You had guys from Canton, Buffalo, Detroit, you know, Chicago. All these guys came into Youngstown because this was a hub. You go through Youngstown, if you go east, you're going New York, Philadelphia, New Jersey, right?
Big mob town.
If you're going west, you're going Detroit, Chicago, Kansas City, and then out to LA, and, you know, all that other stuff. So Youngstown was kind of like a hub, if you think about it, for the mob. And I think another thing that people don't realize is that these guys, you know, if you were a burglar, or if you were a safecracker, or whatever you did, if you were good at gambling, or, you know, running broads, or whatever it might be, right? They moved these guys around the country, you know? It's almost like when you see the sign on the side of a truck that says for hire, right? That's how these guys work, you know? And families would send their guys out to do work with other families because there was money in it. There's money to be made, they're gonna make it.
You know, people ask, we just had somebody ask me earlier, you know, how'd you get into this, right? How'd you get involved in the mob history and learning this stuff? And I'm a filmmaker at heart. You know, I've done some movies out there, guys. I'm still writing screenplays, writing movies, doing podcasts that will be adapting into TV shows and movies. And I went to a film school where everybody always talked about the Goodfellas and The Godfathers, these classic movies, and they're very great, you know, amazing movies. Some of the best movies ever made are mob movies. But I would ask these people, you know, usually people my age, have you ever heard of Youngstown? And they look at me kind of, you know, like a deer in the headlights. They had no idea. They'd never heard of Youngstown. So I thought, you know, it's a shame that people don't know that history. And luckily, there's been a few books so far. Alan May's got a few really good books out there. Rick Perillo's done his work. He's got a lot of good stuff out there. And it's just kind of a want to tell the history of this town. And like I said, it goes back 100 years. So it's being able to embrace your town's history. You know, I think we're at a point now, obviously, where the mob is not, you know, what it was, and it's never going to be what it was.
Right.
You know, the cycle of organized crime, you know, that era is pretty much over. And now we've talked about this in the past. You know, you've got the government is now the organized crime. They're running all the rackets. They do the legalized marijuana. They do gambling now, sports gambling.
It's crazy.
The lottery. They took it all over. So, you know, that era's gone, right? Especially the old gambling era of Youngstown. But somebody's got to document that history.
Exactly.
And so that's what we're trying to do. So we really invite you, if you're watching this on Facebook, or on YouTube, I should say, find us on Facebook, because we have a group on Facebook called Youngstown Mob. We're up to over 28,000 people and growing.
Yeah, in less than a year.
In less than 7 months, 6 or 7 months. It's crazy. So it just goes to show there's a lot of people out there that remember what Youngstown was.
Right.
And they like to share stories. They like to share pictures. We encourage that all day, guys. Definitely post your stuff in there. Help us grow, and, you know, send us an email. We have an email address. It's steelvalleysyndicate@gmail.com. Tell us what you want to talk about. Tell us what you want us to explore. You know, we're doing new shows all the time. Tell them about the Vice Squad, Jim.
Yeah, so episode 2 of the Vice Squad pod just dropped, right? And of course, we're talking about the Torso murders in episode 2. Fantastic episode. If you haven't checked that out yet, you have to watch it.
There's something crazy in that episode. So if you're unfamiliar with the Torso murders, there was a serial killer in the 1920s to the 1940s that went through Cleveland, Youngstown, Pittsburgh, Newcastle, kind of rode the railways. And he left a trail of victims that he, you know, very brutal, horrible killer that was never really caught, brought to justice. There's some theories about who it was, and maybe they did stop him, but no one was ever officially brought to justice for the Torso killings. So we detail that, but there was a place in western Pennsylvania called the Murder Swamp, and this was like the 1930s, where they were finding bodies left and right. Now, they chalked a bunch of them up to the Torso killer, but other ones were blamed on organized crime killings, Black Hand killings.
And Black Hand at that time was really, really big in western Pennsylvania, Hillsville area was very big in that.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of the precursor to what we now refer to as the mob, right?
Yeah. If you ever watch like The Godfather Part 2, you know, Don Fanucci, you know, he was like the old Black Hand, the old Mustache Pete, right? That would come in and basically extort. He was an Italian, but he would extort the other Italians out of fear, and that was how he rose to power. And so eventually, what we know as La Cosa Nostra kind of pushed those guys out.
Yeah.
And they established like families and hierarchies.
Well, and you know what I think it is too? I think kind of the reason why the Black Hand got pushed out is because those guys that were in what we refer to as the mafia or La Cosa Nostra now, right? I think they saw it as, hey, we're preying on our own kind here. There's a problem with that, you know? And I think they saw that there was better ways to take care of your own kind than, you know, extorting them and preying upon them.
And eventually what they did was they started supplying the vice. They started to figure out what do the immigrants want,
Right.
and they started supplying those vices.
Exactly.
Now, you could argue, there's an argument to be made that, the mob itself did also prey on, the community members, some community members. I'm not going to argue that. That's, it's valid arguments. But it's definitely a difference between what became La Cosa Nostra and what was the Black Hand.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, huge difference.
So,
Another thing I wanted to kind of bring up here real quick while we're talking, mafia and Black Hand and things like that. We've been getting a lot of people that have been posting great stuff on the Youngstown Mob group, and I just want to send a heartfelt thank you out to those people. We really appreciate it. It's what keeps this group going. It's what keeps the conversations continuing.
Yeah.
And so I just want to thank you guys for doing that, and please keep it up. Johnny and I may not post every day, but we're constantly on there every day, reading what other people post, liking posts, and things like that. So we're always paying attention to what's going on. And spam, if you guys see any spam in there, report that so we can get rid of it.
We kill it within a day.
Yeah.
That's, we're good for that. We keep an eye on the group. We moderate it. We kill them within a day. We get rid of the spam accounts. So don't worry about that, guys. If you see it, just report it. That's all.
Yep.
And we'll get rid of it.
Absolutely.
But we keep that, our goal is to keep the group full of engaging content. So we really require, people post things. You find an old newspaper that mentions something.
Right.
You find an old video clip somewhere, pictures, old family stories. Any of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we just, me and him, we get documents sent to us, and next thing you know, 4 hours later, we're still down a rabbit hole.
There's a lot. You go down a lot of rabbit holes with this stuff, especially with the old history.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. But please send us your suggestions. We want to know, what do you guys want us to talk about in certain episodes? We'll dedicate an entire episode to certain topics. So, please definitely interact with us.
Absolutely.
This is what this is about.
Exactly. And if you want to be a guest, you want to come on, talk to us for a show, more than welcome. We always love to have guests and talk to new people. So, and I don't want people to take this, like Johnny said, we're talking about history here. We're not trying to bring people on to throw people under a bus or anything like that. We just want to come and talk history. Come and talk, tell us stories, whatever you got. But thank you again for everybody that tunes in every week to watch the episodes that him and I record for all of you. I really want to thank everybody.
And every now and then we like to highlight a post of the week, right? So let's go to our post of the week. I think this week we have one of our guys that posts a lot of stuff in the group.
Yep.
And he goes back a long time.
Yep.
Who do we got?
So today, for our post of the week, we have Frank Fasline. And Frank was, if you've seen his post, 10,000 of you have seen his post, so kudos to that, everybody out there. He was talking about when he would hang around with Nicky Guarino at his house, and Vince deniro would come by to visit Nicky's mom, who was Vince's girlfriend, and he would give Nicky money for them to go to Isley's. And then he also would take Nicky out and buy him nice Dom Perry Taylor suits, right? And all the guys were envious, but Frank had a bunch of good things to say about Vince, and great post this week, Frank. We really appreciate it. And of course, as you can see, 10,000 views, fantastic post.
Vince deniro, so let's talk about Vince for a minute.
Yeah, let's talk about Vince.
Vince is one of the big names in Youngstown lore, right?
Exactly.
He goes back, he was a war veteran, fought in World War II. When he got out of the war, he got into the rackets. Come back from Youngstown, he was ambitious, and he rose pretty quick.
Yeah.
And at the time, this is right after the 40s, right? So the 50s now. Sandy Naples was a big player.
Yeah, I think around the early 50s is when him and Vince partnered up.
Yeah, they were partners.
Yeah.
And these guys were big. And this is after the bug houses kind of shut down and ended. Right. So that was the 40s. They
were still, if I remember reading correctly, in some of those when they were talking about the 50s there, mid 50s or so, they still did have some of the bug houses going. And I know one of the Naples deniro ones, I believe I said it was making like 30 grand a month.
Yeah.
You know, and if you factor that in, that's like $300,000 a year in today's money.
Well, when I say after the bug houses, I mean after the core four, which were like the Greeks, the Big Dom South Side House, the Croatians, you know, the the Irish Club. So after that, in the 1950s, Sandy and Vince become the policy kings.
Yeah.
They run the bug, really, and they made a lot of money doing it.
Oh yeah.
And so those guys were partners. Eventually, there was a falling out at the end of the decade. By the way, the 1950s, we got to do a whole episode on the decade of bombings.
Oh.
80 unsolved bombs, around 80 unsolved bombs in Youngstown at that time. Unbelievable. So
imagine the ones that weren't reported or things like that.
Yeah.
Probably looking at over 100, really.
And when we say Youngstown, again, this is the Mahoning Valley we're talking about. So there were some in Niles, there were some outside of Youngstown, even in Trumbull a little bit, but we consider it all the area. So Vince deniro, unfortunately, by the end of the decade there, Sandy Naples was the first to go. And we believe, you know, from all our research, it was because Sandy would not kick up. Right. So the 1950s, by the time that decade came to an end, Cleveland started influencing, putting their influence on the town.
Right.
Frank Brancato came in and believe he took kind of Vince deniro's vending machines, and he said, you know, you got to pay up to Cleveland. So Vince was hanging out with the Cleveland guys. They were bringing him up there. He's a big earner. Right. Cleveland liked Vince a lot. Sandy wasn't going to pay up. He wasn't going to kick up. Sandy was affiliated with Pittsburgh.
Right.
Because, and why? You've got some research on that.
So the research that we did, we find out, those of you that heard the name Charlie Murgy, who was the longtime consigliere for the Pittsburgh mob, had moved up to Warren. This was in the 50s. And he moves up to Warren. His brother Benjamin had just got out of Western State Penitentiary, where Sandy had served prison time. And his brother was in there for a murder. So that's where the connection between Sandy and Pittsburgh comes in, is they both did time in the same prison at the same time.
The Manarinos, he got hooked up with the Manarinos.
Yeah, and he hooked up with the Manarinos. And, you know, if you look into that story, there's a whole story in there. Our one guy posted, Olmsted.
James Olmsted.
James Olmsted. He posted in there talking about Cuban Sunrise and all that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, these guys in Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania were stealing weapons, and they
From
would
armories.
get armories.
Like
Yeah, I mean they'd hit armories and steal whole armories, and they would move the guns to Manarinos in Pittsburgh, and they would in turn move it down to Santo Trafficante down in Florida, and then from there they'd go to Cuba.
Go to Cuba, yeah.
You know, so there was that whole big connection with that. And of course, then there's also rumors of JFK connections with Jack Ruby's sister living on Elm Street, and the Naples having a stash house a couple houses away from where she lived. Yeah. So, you know, there's always these little 6 degrees of separation that we continue to find.
You know, going back to Vince and Sandy, so they have their little falling out there. Vince gets aligned with Cleveland. Sandy's still kind of aligned with Pittsburgh. After Sandy gets killed, and it's because he wasn't kicking up, there's an interesting, it's not an article, it is a transcription that we have of some cops pulled Joey in to, I believe, Chief
Golden.
Golden, that's true. Chief Golden brings Joey in to ask him. This might have been after Billy or after.
I think this was right after Billy got killed, because I think it was like August of '62.
He was asking Joey who he thought was behind the killing of his brothers, and Joey flat out tells him, he says, Sandy would never kick up, never would kick up, and he's not. That wasn't who Sandy was. He would never do it, and so that's why they killed him. So after Sandy's killed, retaliation back and forth. Vince deniro gets killed. This brings us back to our post of the week. You know, Frank Fazline talks about how great Vince deniro was. Vince deniro, unfortunately, he's blown up on Market Street in the Uptown area, right outside of, across the street from his restaurant, Cicero's.
Yeah, and if you go on to the post, Dean Anthony Rosen in the Youngstown Mob group
Posted a nice picture.
Posted a beautiful picture of Cicero's.
Now, yeah, what's crazy is that picture is actually the day that Vince gets killed later on. So Vince gets killed around midnight that night. It blew out the plate glass windows to several buildings.
Yeah.
But you know what's crazy? Cicero's was not damaged.
Yeah.
Out of all that.
And if you look at the picture, you can see that in there.
Yeah. So there's a lot of history. That's all we're getting at, guys. Is we love when you post these things because it lets us explore it, lets us talk about it. It's a good conversation starter.
Right.
Keep posting. Please keep posting. And again, interact with us. Tell us what you want us to talk about.
Absolutely. And for any of you out there that have large quantities of FOIA requests and FOIA documents, please reach out to us at the email below, steelvalleysyndicate@gmail.com. We have a spot set up on our Google Drive that we will give you access to. And we're going through our files and seeing what we have, and we'll make that available to those people that upload files so we can kind of share.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's just another way for us to pool this information together. Because you never know, somebody might come out and might want to do some research on Akron or Canton or Steubenville, or
we haven't even gone into Steubenville.
Right, we
There's
haven't
a
touched
huge
any of
area of
those.
Steubenville.
Yeah, we haven't touched any of those. So, you know, just keep reaching out to us, and you know, we'll keep reaching out to you guys. And
yeah. In the meantime, check out the Vice Squad pod. Every 2
Absolutely.
weeks we release a new episode. You know, Vince Guerreri, Rick Perello, Jim, and myself put that together. We've got, it's on hiatus right now, but the Jimmy Mullador, the Vegas Player podcast, we're looking for sponsors for that show. We want to keep that show going.
Absolutely.
If you're a fan of that show and you've got any suggestions for sponsors, let us know. And, you know, again, thanks to our sponsors on Mob Talk. We got Sunrise Inn in Warren.
Yep.
And, you know, go see them. They've got amazing food. It's a great restaurant.
And if you haven't try their deep dish pizza.
Oh, my God.
You only
Molto bene.
need one slice. That's
It's
all
really
you
good,
need.
guys.
It's fantastic.
It is excellent. So check that out. And also, again, huge thank you to our host sponsor here today, Cut and Toast Premium Cigars.
Great cigars.
And,
Hey, you're smoking the one I had a couple weeks ago.
Oh, this Fat Bottom Betty. This
yeah.
one's, I
Those
like
are
this
good.
one. I
Yeah,
do like
it's
this
a good
one.
one.
So check it out, guys. Until then, you know, until next time, I'm Johnny Chechitelli.
Jimmy Naples, we'll see you.
Ciao.
Ciao.
That was an amazing podcast from an amazing podcast company. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like and subscribe buttons and share it with your friends. It goes a long way in helping us produce more amazing content.